Alex Bregman has found himself in the news once again as a possible trade target ahead of MLB's trade deadline. We'll get into some of the teams that could target him and why the Red Sox would look to move him before the deadline. We'll also dig into the Arizona Diamondbacks, whether or not they'll buy or sell, and even if they do buy, will they still move on from Josh Naylor and other pending free agents? The Rangers' offense seems to have hit some type of a turnaround, considering how poorly they started. Any type of a turnaround has got to be good news at this point. And also several things around Major League Baseball, including Rafael Devers. We'll get into the Jerks and Profar's return for the Atlanta Braves. And, of course, we'll dig into our MLB updated rankings today. So be sure to hit that like and subscribe, and let's get into it. And welcome into the MLB Hot Stove Daily here at the Upside Sports Network. My name is Michael. Be sure to hit that thumbs up and participate in the chat. Drives a lot more people to us, makes the chat a lot more fun, but appreciate you guys joining us late on a Wednesday evening. Around Major League Baseball, not a whole lot going on as far as overall news, but we are starting to get some rumors as far as Alex Bregman and some updates as far as some injury returns and some availability of players who could be available at the deadline. But first, be sure to hit that like and subscribe if you haven't already. Follow us on X at UpsideAscend and on Facebook, Upside Sports Network as well. We'll start with our top story tonight, and that's Alex Bregman and the possibility that he could be traded ahead of Major League Baseball's trade deadline. the last week or two, ever since the Rafi Devers trade was made, I've been saying basically that Rafi Devers is probably the biggest piece that we'll see moved before the deadline. Now, the Red Sox are going to be competing this year to try to get into the postseason. That was their stated goal. I'm still not convinced that this is a thing that will happen. I think it's a possibility if they continue to slip in the standings. But as of right now, I'd say it's not out of the realm of possibility. And several reporters are noting that several teams would at least kick the tires on Alex Bregman, if not make legitimate offers to the Red Sox should he become available. The Red Sox, if they continue to slip out of further and further from playoff contention, and they're unable to get a contract extension done now that Rafi Devers is off of the roster, I think that could signal to a lot of teams out there about his availability. So we'll have to see. It's got a few more weeks until we get to the trade deadline here, but I think he's going to be probably the biggest bat that if he does get moved, besides Rafi Devers, that could really be an impact here at the deadline. A lot of arms are going to be available this year. No shortage of arms. Starting pitchers, relief guys, even some high leverage guys, high-end closers at the back end of a bullpen. Very few offensive pieces on the level of a Rafi Devers or a Alex Bregman or a Josh Naylor are even going to be rumored to be available at this point. So Alex Bregman, if he really is available, he could get a pretty penny for the Boston Red Sox in return, even for just a couple of months left of his contract. Now, there are several teams that could use an upgrade at third base, shortstop, second base, pretty much anywhere around the diamond, really, for Alex Bregman. The Rangers just demoted Josh Young, their longtime third baseman, due to his recent struggles over the last couple of months. Currently, they're starting Ezekiel Duran. You might remember him from the Joey Gallo trade. He's hitting under 200 right now. He's certainly played a lot better over the last couple of weeks, but come on. We're talking about a player of Alex Bregman's caliber who really took off at the beginning of the year. Of course, the injuries are a concern with him right now. Is he healthy? Will he opt into the contract for years 2 and 3 of the deal? If he doesn't agree to a contract extension, will you lose him for nothing in free agency? All those are big things that we need to worry about when you're talking about Alex Bregman. But there's going to be no shortage of teams that are going to be interested in his services should he legitimately hit the market. I think the Rangers would be at the front of that line. They'd have to figure out something with the money. I'm sure Boston, if they're willing to eat some of that money, could get a hefty return from the Rangers for his services. Rangers are going to be going not necessarily all in on this trade deadline, but I do expect them to be significant buyers here at the deadline. I expect them to try to get an ace type of a closer, kind of an ace up their sleeve, if you will. Kind of a name closer back there like Duran or Clase. I expect them to try to add some depth in their starting pitching, not just from their guys that they got returning from the injured list, but somebody who could give them some depth as well. Somebody like an Andrew Heaney, somebody along those lines. As far as an offensive piece, the one that I mentioned at the top of the video here is Josh Naylor. Expectation is that Naylor could try to go to the biggest bidder in free agency after the season. He is a free agent after the season, after all. The D-backs took a big swing on him in the offseason anyway, and that bet really hasn't worked out so far. He is playing well for them, but the Diamondbacks did not exactly have a great start to the season. Pitching, either via injury or poor performance, has really struggled for them this year. And then, of course, you have to wonder about their ability to really climb in the standings the rest of the way here. Mike Hazen was speaking with the Foul Territory folks, basically saying that he wants to be in a position to buy. Well, rival executives around the league, even with the fact that they would like to buy, still view Josh Naylor as one of the pieces that could move out as far as an ability for them to add pitching to that rotation and to that bullpen. That bullpen has had some issues at the back end there this year. Injury, poor performance, those kinds of things. They've had injury beset them, both in the rotation and in their lineup, with Corbin Burns being lost for the year, Corbin Carroll getting hit by the pitch, etc. They've certainly had their fair share of rough injuries, but Mike Hazen says he wants to buy at the deadline if they seem to be rising a little bit, not necessarily all the way into the wild card picture, but maybe a couple of games out. That could be enough for him to consider to buy at this deadline, and I believe him when he says that. I think they'll try to do everything in their power to buy, but I don't necessarily buy the fact that they're going to hold on to every single piece that they have that's a pending UFA in order to keep this team going towards a pennant. We'll have to see what happens there in Arizona, but that's one team to kind of keep an eye on here ahead of Major League Baseball's trade deadline. Welcome in Sean, Theo, Heel. Appreciate you guys joining us. Got about 15 of you guys with us right now, so be sure to hit that thumbs up at the bottom of the video. Goes a long way to helping us out, so we really do appreciate that. If you're new here, hit that subscribe as well. Sean, which team is going to trade for Bregman? I think it's still too early to say one specific team. I think there's going to be several teams that could look in on him. Of course, the Dodgers, you got to mention them. With pretty much any player that's available, they've shown the willingness and wherewithal financially to go after any and everything that's not nailed down. And even the ones that are nailed down, they'll try to pry them away. The Giants, of course, made the trade for Rafi Devers. I'd probably rule them out as a destination for Alex Bregman, but a team like the New York Yankees, even though, of course, the rivalry between the Red Sox and Yankees exists, I think that would be another team that would try to reach out. The Mets are looking for a bat as well. They were the best team in baseball for the first couple of months of the year, and over the last month or so, they've been the worst. Kind of, tale of two seasons there for the Mets. Hopefully tonight shows kind of an awakening for that offense, and we'll have to see if they're able to shake themselves out of their doldrums over the past month or so. Theo, good evening, Michael. Good evening, Theo. Appreciate you joining us. How about those Blue Jays? They just keep finding ways, setting up for an interesting deadline. Absolutely. We talked about the return of Max Scherzer last night and what that kind of means for your pitching staff. I still think they need a little bit more pitching, but they're also looking, I believe, for a right-handed hitter from what I've seen in a couple of the reports out there. Bullpen help has been mentioned a few times as well, but Max Scherzer gives them some real length in that rotation as far as the ability to throw kind of a variety of different starters at you and kind of allow that rotation not have to rely on the couple of guys that they were having to at the beginning of the year. Now, with Scherzer's return to the rotation, they're not going to be counting on him for necessarily 7, 8 innings like you might have, say, 5, 10 years ago. But if you can get him for, say, number 2 quality Max Scherzer for, say, 5, 6 innings a start, kind of what the Texas Rangers have been doing with Jacob deGrom and Nathan Eovaldi. I think that would be a great kind of a blueprint for Max Scherzer and the Toronto Blue Jays. But to me, they still need to add a little bit more, so I agree with you there, Theo. Good on them for having a nice run here. I think they're 7-3 over their last 10, and I think they're on a 4-game win streak. Meanwhile, the Yankees 4-6 in their last 10, and look like they're kind of having that mid-season swoon that we all expect. It is going to be, a rush to the finish this season. We're still got several months to go, so we'll have to see how this team really holds out there in New York. But I think Toronto's having a much better season than I think we all expected them to have before the start of the year, especially when you had the uncertainty around Vladimir Guerrero Jr. They got that deal locked up, and now they look like they have a future much more certain than at any point over the last 3 years. So good on them for getting that deal done, and I think that deal really has been the impetus for all their success that they had since then, since they got that deal done. Sean, do you agree that the Cubs will make the most impactful trade? Good question, Sean. I like that question. Impactful trade. To me, an impact means, are they changing things from, say, a borderline wildcard team to, say, a bona fide contender? Are they going from a bona fide contender to being a favorite to make it to the World Series and possibly win the World Series? That's what I'm looking at for an impact trade. So to me, I think the Cubs are right there to possibly win the division. I think they likely will win the division in the NL Central. That being said, you still have to deal with the Mets. You still have to deal with the Dodgers. Will they make the most impactful trade? I think they'll add a true number 1 at the top of that rotation. I think they'll add another depth piece for that rotation as well. I think they'll add another utility type of infielder as well. And I think they'll try to add one more bullpen arm. I think this is a team that's all in on the deadline this year. They've been all in since this offseason when they made the trade to bring in Kyle Tucker, and I don't see any reason to stop right now. So, impactful trade, I think they'll add the biggest pieces. I think they'll spend the most out of their prospect pool. Will it do enough to get over the top of, say, the Mets or the Dodgers? Mets, depending on what they do at the top of their rotation, I think the Cubs and Mets will be competing for some of the top aces on the market that could become available. But we'll have to see who ultimately gets the winner out of those two. I think the winner of that trade, or whoever ends up getting the best ace at the deadline, likely advances in the postseason a little bit further. I still think the Dodgers are the prohibitive favorite in the National League. I really don't see anything changing that, even if the Cubs did every single one of the things that I've just mentioned. Added a number 1 starter, added a number 3, 4 type starter, added a utility difference-making hitter, if they added another bullpen arm. Now, say they added an Alex Bregman, a superstar level bat to this lineup, and they got a number 1 starter, and a number 3, 4 type starter, and then say they go out and get the Emmanuel Clase for their bullpen. Then I could see them rivaling a team like the Los Angeles Dodgers. Do they have enough prospects to be able to get that type of deadline this year? I don't think so. Now, an ace, I think they have enough resources for. A number 3, 4 type starter, I think they have enough resources for. Bregman type of a trade, I think they have enough resources for that as well. Financially, we'll have to see if they're willing to do that as well. But then, as far as Class A, I think they'll probably run out of prospect capital to get that type of deal done. But we shall see around the deadline if the Cubs really go that far into the deadline. All right, let's try to catch up on a few of these comments here. Heel, Rangers should think about having a big trade deadline on offense because that might help them get a wild card spot. I think that the Rangers, for better or for worse, will be buyers at the deadline. Up until the past, 10 games or so, this offense had been the league's worst offense in the game, and they're scoring about 6 runs a game over the last 10. Certainly having some extra inning games certainly helps out in the run total department there, but we're seeing some players really turn around their seasons. Players like Corey Seager looks like he's a much better hitter right now, a lot hotter of a hitter. Marcus Semien has turned things around, looks like a top 3 second baseman in the sport all over again. You look at Adolis Garcia, kind of runs hot and cold, but he's turned it around much better than where he was. Same thing for Evan Carter. You also look at Josh Smith as well, carrying this offense, even with their offense was abysmally poor for the entirety of the first half here. Other bats that they really need to get improvements from, though, include Josh Young, who was just sent down, Jake Berger, who was just brought back from the injured list, Jock Peterson, who just had who's coming back from injury here in the next couple of weeks. You have to get more out of your catching tandem of Higashioka and Heim. They just need more from those spots. If they get, say, a one-hitter, say Josh Naylor from the Arizona Diamondbacks, that's been one name that I saw connected to the Rangers today. Say they add him. Say they put Berger over there at third base since he's played third in the past if Josh Young can't figure it out offensively. You put Naylor in there at first base, then you still need another bat at DH, or maybe you play Naylor there. Is that enough to really elevate this lineup? Their pitching has been that good. I will say it's been the best bullpen over the last month and a half, even with their extra inning games that we've seen over the last week really kind of cost that ERA to go up even more. But they're still the best bullpen over the last month or so. Their offense is improving. Their rotation has been great all year long. They've shown some hiccups over the past couple of weeks as they had some innings kind of wear and tear on some of their younger guys. But I do think they have enough arms right now to stay in the race. So to answer your question, or to kind of respond at least, should they have a big trade deadline anyway to address the needs on the offensive side? I think they should address needs, absolutely. A big change, I don't really see a big change being out there besides maybe an Alex Bregman. Now, if you're telling me they go after a Ryan O'Hearn or a Josh Naylor, I'd say that'd be a nice get for them. Would I say it's a difference-making trade for them? I'd be on the fence. A clear difference-making trade to me would be an Alex Bregman type of a trade. I'm not sure they have the financial resources to get that type of a deal done. They might have to give up heavy prospects to get the Red Sox to bite down on the entirety, or at least the majority of that remaining deal that they have right now, but we shall see. The Rangers, I do think, will be significant buyers at the deadline. How significant remains to be seen. Midnight Drives, welcome in. So you're saying the D-backs won't sell hard at the deadline? Absolutely. I think Mike Hazen was very clear in that today that he wants to buy at the deadline. Every GM's going to say that as they, kind of build up towards the All-Star break and get closer to the trade deadline. As we want to see ourselves get more and more competitive. We want to play better. We want to be in a position to compete. We want to get into the postseason. All those kinds of things. But I think with the Arizona Diamondbacks, they don't really go into a hard sell like you say. They've never really done that in quite a long time now, especially under Mike Hazen. Now, in that situation, you've already spent big this offseason, and it's really not worked out so far. Mike Hazen owned up to that in that interview today. Now, will they add at the deadline? That remains to be seen. Could they hold pat at the deadline? I think that's far more likely than them adding here, depending on where they finish as they get closer to the trade deadline. But we shall see. But I do not see them doing a hard sell, trading everything that's not nailed down. I don't see them doing something like that. All right, Heel, this may be a hot take, but I don't see Bregman moving. I think the Red Sox traded Devers to fully commit to Bregman. I agree with that. I think that's their idea. That's their idea when they traded away Devers, is that they wanted Bregman to take over third permanently. I think the caveat to that, though, is, of course, do they get the extension done? Scott Boras, his agent anyway, says they're open to a long-term extension. He, of course, has 2 option years after this year. But I think that he wants a long-term deal first and foremost, and I think he wants to get his number. I think the Red Sox are more amenable to what his number might be after they're able to get rid of that entire Devers contract, and I think he'll get a contract that really fits what Bregman is looking for. Do I think that he gets traded at the deadline? I really don't. I think that there's an outside chance of it if they don't get that extension done. But I have no reason to believe that the Red Sox will not be able to offer up enough money to be able to convince Alex Bregman. The question is it enough to convince Scott Boras to tell his client Alex Bregman to sign the deal? That's always a question you never really know with Scott Boras. Usually, he's the type of agent that likes to get him to free agency and test the market. We saw how that worked out last year for Bregman. Didn't exactly get the numbers he was looking for. We'll see what this year ultimately holds. Sean, Cardinals just went scoreless in 3 games versus the Pirates. Yeah, the Pirates, and the Marlins are kind of having a fluky couple of weeks here. Rockies had that earlier this year as well. White Sox did as well. But I don't necessarily view that as indicative of what the Cardinals are right now. I think they're a team that's trying to build towards the future. They're trying to see what they got going forward. I think this is kind of a clear indication that, hey, maybe you're not necessarily World Series contending team, by the way, no matter how good you felt about the roster after the first couple of months of the season. This year was all about figuring out which pieces were going to be there for the long haul and who ultimately was going to be jettisoned from them. Let's see here. Mark, welcome in. Appreciate you joining us. Hi, would Texas getting J.D. Martinez in a trade for Finnegan, would that make them a serious threat in the AL, or do you think they maybe need to add another bullpen arm and a bat? Before the season, the Rangers were my pick to get to the World Series, or at least to the AL championship game, to the ALCS anyway. I think Boston was my other pick anyway. I didn't really believe in the New York Yankees after the loss of Garrett Cole. If they had Garrett Cole, the Yankees were going to be my pick along with the Rangers to get to the ALCS. Yankees at that point would have been my team to get to the World Series. But no Garrett Cole. I went ahead and moved off of them. They've certainly had a great first half so far better than what I thought they would be. I still believe the Rangers have the talent to get there. Even if they don't make an addition of J.D. Martinez or a Finnegan or any other additions to this roster, I think they have enough talent on this roster to be able to get there. The pitching speaks for itself. Best in the entire league. That's how good their pitching has been this year. The offense was abysmally poor. That's the reason why they are nowhere near the heights in the standings anyway of where the Astros are. I think the offense is turning around. Meanwhile, the pitching staff, while the starting pitching has regressed just a little bit, the bullpen is still really good. They need a high leverage closer there. And even if they don't get one, I think they'll still be in a good stead to compete in a very competitive American League. I don't think anybody's running away with the American League right now. Not even the Tigers, not the Yankees. Nobody. The Astros aren't running away with this thing. You're still going to have a very competitive playoffs on the American League side. I don't think there's a prohibitive favorite like on the National League side where you have the LA Dodgers. I think the Dodgers, and then you have a step down to the Mets and then the Cubs. Then you have a step down to pretty much everybody else. But, we shall see. Philadelphia's having a great year. I should include them in that Cubs tier as well. Let's see here. But as far as J.D. Martinez, until he actually proves that he's back to being, a 500 slug type of guy, even if you're getting him on a non-guaranteed deal, I'm not saying J.D. Martinez is going to be the difference maker for them. But adding some pieces at the deadline, I think, is very much in the DNA of Chris Young and Bruce Bochy, and I think they will. But I think the roster they have right now is good enough to compete as is. Is it enough to win the World Series? I don't think so. I think the Dodgers, to me, win the World Series no matter who they face on the American League side right now. I just think they are that talented. They are that good. So if you're trying to, unseat the Dodgers as the champs, you're certainly going to have to add a little bit more. To me, the Rangers have to add like a Duran or Clase to the back of that bullpen first and foremost. Get a little bit better production out of catcher, or at least something from their catchers there. Get a little bit more consistency from a guy like Adolis Garcia. And then you're talking about a team that's a real threat in the American League. Now, if they can get Josh Young to hit about, say, 270, 280, like he's always done his entire career, then you really have something on the American League side. But for right now, I think they're still a very good team. Likely could get to the World Series. They ain't winning it. But I think pretty much any team could get to the American League Championship Series right now on the AL side. Tigers could get there. Astros could get there. Yankees could get there. Blue Jays even, I think, could get there as well. But that's kind of where I see things on the American League side. All right, let's try to catch up with a few more of these comments. Got quite a few anyway. Heel, Ryan O'Hearn to the Mariners. I think it should happen. I agree with you. I think they need to add a bat like that or a Josh Naylor. Somebody like that, a first base DH type to go into the Seattle lineup and kind of lengthen out that lineup as good as their offense performed in the first couple of months of the year, I'm not holding out a candle thinking that's the new norm for them. I think this is a team that's still going to struggle offensively as the season goes along, and certainly once you get to October, we see some of the faltering of that roster as they currently stand with that offense. But Mark, AL crown or more, I think they need one more of each. A bat and an arm. I'll agree with you there. I don't think they just need another arm back there in the bullpen. Like I said last night, the Rangers have plenty of guys at the minor league level that have major league experience that are throwing well that they can count on if their innings start to become an issue as the second half really rolls on. I think the real thing that they need is a dominant closer, a Duran for me, a Clase. That's where I think is the real difference maker for Texas. Them just getting a guy like a Finnegan who could be a really nice closer for them, but not necessarily a dominant guy that you're necessarily worried about if you're the opposing team. I don't think that really moves the needle for Texas. If you're wanting to really move the needle to being a contender this year for Texas to win the entire thing, to me, you add a Duran. That changes the conversation a little bit. You add another bat, especially a talented one like Bregman. That certainly would change the conversation for me as well. Say the Red Sox end up trading Bregman to the Rangers in exchange for Josh Young and a couple other pieces to get the Red Sox to bite down on the remainder of the salary of this year, and then the Texas Rangers take over the salary in the option years, of course, if they don't extend him, of course. But that's another conversation for another day about his options. But those would be the types of moves I could see being a difference maker for the Texas Rangers. Will they make the most trades? I do think the Cubs will probably make the most trades out of all the teams. I think they're the most hungry. They have the biggest appetite to try to compete this year. Their offense certainly has been great for them, and that's where they really get that appetite from. He'll call me crazy, but something like a Adolis Garcia to the Yankees for Jason Dominguez is possible, or some minor leaguers because they need protection for Judge. I don't think that would happen. I think if they're trading Adolis Garcia, it's to get off of the money for Adolis first and foremost because they're bringing another big offensive piece that will make an impact this year. I don't think they're necessarily worried about bringing in a long-term piece like a Jason Dominguez, even though I think that would be the better long-term play. I think if they're trading Adolis Garcia, it's to get off of his money for one, and then two, bring in another piece that could be an even better offensive piece this year. Somebody who's more consistent at the plate than Adolis. I think that would be the move that Texas would make. But your idea of Adolis for Jason Dominguez, while it might be interesting for both sides, Yankees getting more proven guy to kind of handle things in the postseason, somebody who can handle the big spotlight there in New York. Meanwhile, you give up a top prospect, or former top prospect anyway, somebody with a big future there in Jason Dominguez. I don't think the value's there at all for the Yankees, but that's the type of move I could see them going for. Maybe not with a Jason Dominguez level player, but with some of their minor league pieces, trying to get somebody with a proven postseason track record. A Nolan Arenado, Adolis Garcia, like you mentioned, would be another piece that could make some headlines there for New York. My surprise trade that could happen is Luis Arraez to the Tigers. Just my hot take, possible. Absolutely, I think the Padres are keen to shed a little bit of salary before the deadline. Their finance guys have been adamant about that pretty much for the past year and a half. I think they will get their way. It's just, what baseball trade makes sense to alleviate some of the cost that they're sending out the door. So they have a couple of expiring deals. I expect them to try to trade one of those. King, Cease, Arraez, and then try to retool from there. But I don't think they're going to give up on the year or punt on trying to compete this season. Do the Cardinals trade Arenado? I think that they very likely will. I think they're going to have a good market for him this year. Rangers are going to be in there, of course, for his services. Astros have already tried. Maybe they convince him to finally waive that no trade to go there. Yankees, I think, will probably kick the tires on it if they can't get Bregman or a Suarez or somebody along those lines. I think that's another piece that they'll try to go after. I think the Astros get Cedric Mullins and put him in left. Mullins' arm is terrible, by the way. They have to put him in left. They need offense, so I think that would be a good get for them. I think his cost wouldn't be too high either for them. They're also a team that's very limited financially, so they might have to get the Orioles to bite down a little bit of that contract in order for it to fit within their budget right now. Mark, you think Texas opening Spores can come back and he and Garcia are co-closers if they don't get a closer? I think there is a hope internally that if they don't add a true dominant closer back there, that Spores could be that guy in the postseason. Remember, he's the guy that got the final out in the World Series. He's shown the ability to hold down that role before, but he's also shown the ability to be erratic at times. Same thing with Garcia. Seems to really hold down that eighth inning role really well. Still a younger player, but still struggles at times with emotion in that ninth inning. He gets to 2 strikes with 2 outs and then somehow gives up like 3 straight walks after that. That's just him kind of learning how to adjust to that, getting that final out of the game. And I think that's where you want some experience if you're going to the postseason. You don't necessarily want a guy who hasn't done it in the postseason before. That's why Spores, I think, would be the internal guy. But like I said, I think Texas is going to be looking a little bit bigger for an elite level closer there. Let's see here. Heel, I think we might get the Astros versus Dodgers to rematch, to be honest. I think that's very likely. Like I said, I think pretty much any of the teams in the American League that get to the postseason have a chance to get to the World Series. I don't think there's necessarily going to be a prohibitive favorite one way or the other. Now, if you're telling me Texas is somehow able to get, say, a Duran at the deadline and an Alex Bregman, maybe I'll reconsider that. I think Texas could be that type of a team that could elevate themselves to that status. I think the Astros could do that as well if they do something similar as far as adding a bat, getting the arms back that they're hoping to get back around the trade deadline as well. That could be another team that makes a real run at the World Series on the AL side. Sean, do the Guardians become sellers? They just lost again. I think the Guardians will do what they did in the offseason last year, the year before, pretty much their entire time of existence. They do a little bit of buying and selling. So, they try to pare down their payroll a little bit. They'll probably try to get out of Santana's contract if they can. They'll probably try to maximize the value of that bullpen. That's why I mentioned Class A as a very viable option here at the trade deadline this year, because I think they have 3 guys that they could probably legitimately use in the 8th, 9th inning roles and allow, say, Cade Smith, for instance, to take over as their number 1 closer back there and be just fine without necessarily punting on the season. Much like the Tampa Bay Rays, they'll always, give up some of the loftier contracts that they have and still somehow retool and be right in competition for a postseason spot as we wind down the year. All right, appreciate you guys joining us. Let's go ahead and head over to our screen here and get into some of the other headlines of the day. Jurickson Profar is back for the Atlanta Braves. They designated Alex Verdugo for assignment for teams needing some offense. I think Alex Verdugo could be a nice get for somebody out there. Not that he's ripping, the cover off the ball or anything like that, but I think he's a league average outfielder at this point in his career. Somebody who could at least hold down the position in a short-term type of a role, or at least give you some depth as you're trying to push towards the postseason. Is he, an Alex Bregman type to move at the deadline? No. But he is a nice piece for somebody to try to add, especially since it's not going to cost you anything, since he was just designated for assignment by the Atlanta Braves. We mentioned Rafi Devers and his struggles at the top of the video. As far as how much he struggled, let's just say he's striking out way too much like he was in the beginning of the year with the unsettled position that he had in Boston, that he was moved off of third base, seemed to be pouting about it, struck out like 19 times in his first, 20 games or 15 games or something like that. That rough series that he had in the opener against Texas was just abysmal. Then he settled in and went right back to being the Rafi Devers we all know and love. Now, he was just traded to the San Francisco Giants. Of course, has all that pressure of saying, hey, finally out of Boston, look at me now. You're going to miss me when I'm gone, that kind of a thing. I think Rafi Devers is feeling that type of pressure right now to really produce. It's a bigger ballpark to play in, obviously, than the Green Monster in Fenway. And so he's going to have to take some time to adjust to that. But the strikeouts aren't typical for him when he's really, hitting on all cylinders right now. He'll have to, his power numbers will probably come down a little bit. But I still think they'll be there, and that's what really the Giants were hoping for when they traded for him. I think it's just taking him time to acclimate to the San Francisco ballpark, the team, the change in lifestyle, the team itself, not having to deal with the Boston media, those kinds of things there. We talked a little bit about the Mets as well, being the best team for the first couple of months of the year, being the worst the last month. And, the Mets, we'll see where their deadline goes, but I think they really need an ace for their staff. That's why I mentioned the Cubs and Mets as the teams that will likely go after the best starting pitchers on the market at this trade deadline. I'm sure there'll be other teams in the mix for some of those aces that do pop up here. But those are the 2 teams that need the ace most. I mean, we talked about the Orioles being a team that needed one before the season. Obviously, they won't be buyers at this deadline. They will be selling some pieces and hopefully competing next year. But they will not be a team that's trying to add one of those ace-level starters. So take them as one of the buyers out of that category. So that kind of, drops the asking price just a little bit since there's less competition for a true number 1. But make no mistake, the Dodgers are going to kick the tires on literally any name that hits the market. Pretty much any team that's thinks that has a chance at a World Series at least going to kick the tires on those aces that do pop up. But I think it's going to be incumbent upon the Mets and Cubs to get that ace more than anything else. Brandon, you mentioned that the Jays could use an ace. I think they could. Functionally, they have a bunch of 2s and 3s on that in that rotation currently. They remind me a lot of the way Baltimore was set up before the year. They don't really have a true number one, but they have guys who could pitch like a number one from time to time. I would want somebody who's able to go out there every fifth day and really dominate, kind of in that Cy Young type of conversation. But again, I just don't think they'll have the prospect depth to be able to get it done. We talked about the lack of depth in their prospect pool in the offseason when they were trying to make some additions to this roster around Vladimir Guerrero Jr. and the uncertainty around that roster. I think they're kind of in that same boat right now, and we'll have to see how the rest of the season plays out. But I do think they'll try to add some pitching there, primarily to that bullpen, and a right-handed hitter as well. Cabrera, he's not an ace, though. I think that'd be kind of in that same vein, 3-4 type of starter that really kind of fits what the Jays already have going for them. Like a Sandy Alcantara, if he was right, might be the type of player, but I think if Alcantara does get moved, which I still doubt, I think that's more of an off-season move, I think the Cubs and Mets will probably be the most likely to get those types of starting pitchers. Johnny, welcome in. Appreciate you joining us once again. Got about 20 of you guys with us right now. Be sure to hit the thumbs up at the bottom of the video. It means a lot to us if you would go ahead and do that. If you're new here, hit that subscribe and participate in the chat. Really do appreciate having a lively chat this evening. Johnny, everybody wants to see the Astros and Dodgers in the World Series. I don't know if everybody wants to see that. I mean, Yordan Alvarez is going to have had a step back anyway. I was going to see a specialist. Haven't heard any updates yet about that, but I would expect him to be out at least until after the trade deadline. Well, hopefully they can get him back before the playoffs really get going. But as far as the Dodgers, they are the very likely team to get to the World Series and win it. Whoever wins out of the American League side or gets to the World Series on the American League side, I think will be likely facing an uphill battle against Goliath, but we shall see. Seems like Matt Muncy just injured his knee. Ouch, that's not good. Astros will pull off a big trade at the deadline. I do think the Astros will make a trade. Big is a little bit of an overstatement. Remember, they're right up against it financially. They do not want to add salary. They have about $2 to $3 million with which to work right now, and I don't think they have the financial wherewithal to really add any of the big names that are out there at this deadline. Now, maybe they go for more of a cost-controlled player. Say they go for a Mason Miller, really gut their farm system the rest of the way. That could be a possibility. I don't think they have prospects to do it, but if they wanted to, that would be the cost-controlled type of move that they could go for, and that would be the kind of the difference-making move that Astros could make. But we shall see as we get closer to the deadline. All right, let's go ahead and get into our rankings. You guys have been waiting for it, but it's time to get to them, so let's go ahead and pull it up for you guys. Last week, just to kind of show you where we were with our 1 through 10. Dodgers, Tigers, Phillies, Cubs, Astros 1 through 5. Yankees, Rays, Mets, Padres, and Blue Jays 6 through 10. That will be changing this week, as you might expect with the Mets and their struggles as of late. They will continue their slide here just a little bit. Johnny, if the Astros think they can win, it won't matter to them. They do it every time. They have an owner in Jim Crane who is willing to pay a little bit here and there. He is certainly firm on his set price of giving to starting pitchers of $30 million. He doesn't really want to exceed that for any player really on his roster. He does not want to exceed 5 years as far as a long-term deal. Those are the things to talk about in the offseason. At the trade deadline, or during this offseason anyway, they were saying that they did want to exceed the tax threshold. And I think they're very committed to that. There are ways that they could find, add extra prospects to get the other team to eat some salary. But I don't think there's a trade out there that they, one, have the prospect wherewithal to go out there and make. Two, that the piece would be significant enough for them to eat some salary, or for them to take on extra salary and get into the tax. I just don't think there's a piece that's difference-making enough for them. And three, while they're certainly willing to do those types of a move, what piece are they really going to go for? I haven't heard any, specific names that'd be difference makers for the Astros. Sure, we hear about, a corner outfield bat, Luis Robert, players like that, but that's not a difference maker to me. Even if you get the White Sox to eat the entirety of his salary, I still don't think he's worth making the trade for right now if you're the Houston Astros. There are some pieces that I think could be some decent additions to this roster. I think they could use some guys that could help add some innings to that rotation. They certainly had their injury issues over the last couple of years, and certainly having some depth there would not be a bad thing. But I don't think they're necessarily doing a difference-making type of a move that elevates them from a good contending team on the AL side that, if things break the right way, they get to the World Series, to a team that's for sure getting to at least the ALCS and has a good chance of knocking off the Dodgers in the World Series. I don't think there's a trade out there like that for the Astros this year, but we shall see. Astros continue to prove us wrong year after year after year, but I just don't think there's a trade out there that kind of fits that description. Let Brown do his magic, and we will see. I do think Brown will do a nice job getting some nice pieces here and there, kind of solidifying that roster a little bit more. Like I said, adding depth to that rotation, adding innings. I think they will add a bullpen arm or two. I think they will try to add a utility type of a player who can play a lot of corner outfield if necessary. I think that's more likely the route that they will take. But I don't think they're going to, all of a sudden bring back Alex Bregman or add a, Sandy Alcantara to this rotation or trade for a Duran in the bullpen. Mason Miller, I threw that one out there because of his salary being so low. They don't really have the prospect wherewithal to do something like that. If they were going to trade for him, they would likely have to trade some pieces off their major league roster, and that only makes them worse, not better. But we shall see. I do like Brown. I think he's got a good chance to, pull some. Pull a rabbit out of his hat and work some magic there. But let's go ahead and get into our rankings. We'll start all the way down at the bottom, like we do week in, week out anyway. Let me just double check and make sure nothing has happened today. Kershaw just hit 3,000, so congratulations, Clayton Kershaw, on 3,000 strikeouts. For those of you who are Dodgers fans, you've gotten to watch a special one. Not too much else there. Let's go back to our baseball list. Astros prospects looking better all the time. True. I mean, when you start so low, you can only go one direction. Just letting you know. All right, let's get back to our rankings here, since nothing else is really happening besides that Kershaw getting his 3,000th. Standings, we'll start at the bottom anyway, because that's kind of where these are some of the worst teams in the league. The White Sox, the A's, Orioles, Royals, Twins. Those are some of the worst teams in the league right now. On the NL side, you're looking at the Rockies, Nationals, Pirates. Marlins have had a nice win streak as of late, 8-2 in their last 10. Lost their last one, of course, but they're having a nice run as of late. But they will rise up a little bit in our rankings today. Altuve just passed Jeff Bagwell on the all-time hits list for the Astros. Kind of surprised he wasn't ahead of him already. Altuve is that good of a hitter, but Hall of Famer. Anytime you pass a Hall of Famer, deserves a round of applause there. Hats off, those kinds of things. All right, to me, the Rockies 2-8 in their last 10. Even though they played better over the couple of weeks ago, they've certainly fallen back into their old ways here. And of course, going up against Houston, that's a good spot for Houston to get them in right now. So for me, Rockies still worst team in the league. I don't think that's changing right now. For some reason my C just does not work on here very much. All right. Last week we had the Nationals as our next worst team. Are they still in that stead? They're 5-5 in their last 10. Pirates have a nice little run. The Pirates obviously aren't going to be dropping here. On the AL side, 5-5 for the White Sox. Royals 2-8. They're in conversation for this spot as well. I think I'm still going to stick with the Nationals in this spot here. The White Sox, meanwhile, I think have found some answers for their long-term future after the trade of Crochet. I think they've got some pieces to build upon. Meanwhile, the Nationals, I think, they're just waiting till the offseason when they can really add some free agents and really get this team going and competing in that division. I think they're just biding time more than anything else. So the White Sox, to me, pretty much stay in the same spot. All right. Pirates, Marlins are going to elevate here a little bit. A's, I think they could drop a hair, but let's see here. 4-6 in their last 10. Going up against San Francisco. I think the A's will drop. The Orioles, they have some nice pieces offensively, but that pitching staff has just been rough this year. I have to put the A's next because that offense is decent, But that pitching staff, pitching in a AAA ballpark, has already given over 500 runs up so far, and I think it's only going to get worse as the heat rises in the summer. So give me the A's down there at number 27. I'll move the Pirates up. Do I want to move them up 1 or 2 spots? I think we'll move up the. I think we'll move the Pirates up just 1. Same thing with the Marlins. Nice run as of late, but I'm not thinking they're going to beat any of the other teams ahead of them if they were to face each other head-to-head right now, even though they are on a hot streak. All right. Orioles, I think, are in that next conversation along with the Royals. Twins are there as well. Diamondbacks, how have they been playing here? Try to make this fit all on one screen, make it easy. Okay. Diamondbacks, they're above 500 right now, 5-5. I think they're going to climb just a little bit. Twins, meanwhile, they just put Ober on the injured list as well. 4-6. Guardians 3-7. They're only 3 games out though. Red Sox also 3-7. Angels have played some nice ball, even with Ron Washington basically announcing he's going to be gone for the year, and they are introducing an interim manager for the rest of the year. But I think the Orioles and Royals are probably the most likely teams that I'm going to put next. Braves, meanwhile, I haven't looked at them. 4-6. Profar is coming back. But I think that's probably your next 3. I'm going to go ahead and put the Orioles, Royals, Braves, Twins, D-backs, Reds are your next teams on the NL side by standing anyway. Mets, they're 3-7 in their last 10, but they ain't dropping all the way out of the top 20. That's for sure. Let's kind of climb up here just a little bit. We still have the Diamondbacks to put in here. Guardians are playing a little rough lately. Guardians, Red Sox got to be in this conversation. Rangers, how have they been doing? I've watched their games, but I haven't paid attention too much to the win-loss record as of late. 5-5, 2 games back of the wild card. That's kind of surprising. Okay. D-backs, while playing decent and above 500, I don't think they're going to go a little bit. I think they're going to go a little bit above where the Guardians are right now. Red Sox, do they pass the Red Sox? I'll give the D-backs a nod over the Red Sox. Angels, they played a little bit better, so I'm going to go ahead and put the Guardians as 20. Red Sox, 19. D-backs or Angels? Which team? No, I'll go D-backs up 1 higher, and I'll put the Angels here. Okay. Not bad. All right, let's keep it rolling here. Rangers were 16 for me last week. Where do they go this week? With their offense improving, on the NL side, we still have the Reds here. 6-4 in their last 10. The Reds have had a nice season. Giants have certainly fell on some rough times, but they're still 4 games above 500. Devers' move hasn't worked as of yet. Cardinals, 5-5. Again, just kind of toeing that line so far. I'm thinking Giants, Cardinals, Reds, Rangers, honestly. Brewers, where are they at? 7-3. They're playing good baseball. Mariners, they're currently the last wild card spot, 6-4. I think they're above the Rangers as well, at least right now. So, Giants, Cardinals, Reds, and with the Rangers offense finally waking up and throwing another shutout today, and their bullpen finally getting some rest for the last couple of games after 4 straight extra innings games. And even with that in consideration, they had the best bullpen over the last month and change. Best pitching staff so far in the league. Really impressive. All right. Now's where it's going to get a little bit more interesting. Do the Mets fall this far with their struggles as of late? Mets 3-7 in their last 10. Do I put them below the Brewers? I don't think so. Even though the Brewers are 7-3 and the Mets are 3-7, I don't think I put the Mets that far. They might be right next to each other though. Blue Jays 7-3, they will go up a little bit here. Mariners 6-4. Any other team having massive struggles that we haven't talked about yet? Yankees 4-6. Nobody else is really having major struggles as far as teams that are contending. So, Padres, where are they? 5-5. Let's do... I think the Brewers are still pretty much right where they were last week. Brewers, Mets, because I think those are right next to each other right now. I think the Mets will get better, but for right now they drop outside of the top 10. I think this is the first time this year I think I've had them outside of the top 10. Yeah, just barely though. I think they'll be back in next week. Padres, I think, would probably be the next team. Yankees and Blue Jays, I think, are right there for the next one. Rays as well. I haven't talked about the Rays much yet. 5-5. They just continue to plod along here. I think they're kind of in that same conversation with the Padres for me. So I'll put the Rays here. Whoop. Not Arby's. That's John Heyman who likes that Arby's. All right. So that means the Blue Jays are elevating here. Mariners, I think, go a spot above. I'm not convinced they stay this high though, but I'll give them credit for what they've done so far. Do I put them above the Rays though? Or am I missing Am I missing that? Padres, am I missing that as well? Let's flip these around. Honestly, all 3 of these teams are kind of right next to each other for me. You could put them in any order. But the Blue Jays, Yankees, I think, are going to be right next to each other. I'll say the Blue Jays go a step above the Yankees. And the Yankees go to 7 because of their recent struggles. For now. Is that the lowest we've had the Yankees? I don't think so. I think earlier in the year we had them a little lower. Yeah, 10 was the lowest we had the Yankees. Right now they're at 7. Okay. Now your top 5. Any of these teams need to drop out of the top 5? Below the Jays or below the Yankees? Astros, I would say no. Cubs, they're still 15 games above 500, even though they're playing 500 ball recently. I still think the Cubs would probably beat the Blue Jays in a series right now if they had to play each other. I think the pitching would be kind of a wash between the two clubs. I think the offense would probably shine a little bit more for the Cubs if they faced each other. So I'd probably still lean above them. Cubs versus Stros. 8-2. I think the Astros are going to rise here a little bit. Phillies, I haven't talked about them much. They're 5-5. They're kind of in that same boat. So I'll go ahead and put the Cubs. I'll put the Phillies above the Cubs still because I like their pitching a little bit better. I think the Astros, with their recent play, elevate, but again, they're kind of facing a soft part of their schedule, facing the Rockies right now. Tigers and Dodgers, I think, are still the best teams in the AL and the NL as of right now as well, as far as their performance on the field. And I still think the Dodgers are the prohibitive favorites. So Tigers still stay at 2 for me, and the Dodgers stay at 1. So just to kind of recap, Dodgers, Tigers, Astros, Phillies, Cubs, Blue Jays, Yankees, Rays, Mariners, and Padres are your top 10. Mets falling out, Rangers rising. Some of your biggest risers this week. Let's see here. Diamondbacks, one of your biggest risers. Rangers as well. Blue Jays, probably the most significant climb because they're in the top 10 now. Biggest fall. Mets are in that category. Royals are definitely in that category as well. Not too many fallers here. 1 or 2 spots for the most part. Brendan, I disagree. I think the Cubs would lose to the Jays if they played right now. They've been playing 600-plus ball for the last 45 days. With the return of Scherzer, if he continues to stay healthy, I'd probably agree with you that they'd have a slight pitching edge. But for right now, until they have that definitive edge in the pitching staff, I'm going to lean more of a split decision, in which case I'd give the decision to the Cubs for their offense. But I think the Jays will have a better pitching staff until the Cubs make an addition at the deadline. Once they do, I think the Cubs probably have the better pitching staff at that point. But I do agree with you, it's very close between the teams. That's why I have them right next to each other. But for me, I'd probably lean Cubs. I just think the pitching is very, very close. Manoah's coming back in 2 weeks as well. That's good. More good news on the pitching front there for the Jays. But again, it's a bunch of 2s and 3s for me for the Jays. For the Cubs, they have a bunch of low-end 2s, mostly 3s in their rotation. I'd give, if I had to give a slight edge, I'd probably say the Blue Jays if I had to, pick between the pitching staffs right now. But I think when it's all said and done, the Cubs will have a better pitching staff once they add an ace. But as far as the rosters that they have right now, I think they're very, very close. But I'd give the slight edge right now to the Cubs. It's very close, though. I'm not saying that your Blue Jays are that far behind. I just think they're very close, and I just give a slight nod to the Cubs. All right. Anything egregiously wrong, like somebody 10 spots too high or 10 spots too low? I think we're pretty close to right on. Let us know in the comments section what you guys think. Remember to join us next week for our updated MLB Power Rankings as well. Tomorrow night, we'll get into some of the trade talk around Major League Baseball. We'll touch on NBA free agency and see how things are going there. Mavericks agreeing to a contract with Dante Exum today. Dame Lillard, of course, being waived and stretched by the Milwaukee Bucks. Kind of the fallout from that. It sounds like the Kevin Durant trade to the Houston Rockets is expanding to a quote-unquote 7-team trade, including the Golden State Warriors and others in that deal. More about getting the players moved around more than anything else. But just an incredible amount of teams involved in that deal. It's going to probably be the biggest trade in NBA history. Could all have been done separately, sure. But for all intents and purposes, though, it will be a full 7-team trade when it's all said and done, if not more. But we shall see. Again, more talk about LeBron James and the possibility about him being traded. The more I read up on it, the more and more I'm kind of liking the idea of him being moved. But again, it's LeBron. He can decide wherever he wants to play. Until he says he wants to move, I don't think he will be moved. And I don't think we'll hear that news. I think we'll just be surprised when we see that bottom of the ticker say, breaking news, LeBron James traded. I think that'll be the surprise for all of us. But we shall see. You could see the Raps getting involved somehow. Very true. The Raps do have a couple of moves that that they're going to have to include in some of these deals, I'm sure, to get some of these contracts on the books anyway. Johnny, hey Michael, check out the Astros-Dodgers game this weekend. Should be good. Absolutely, that should be a good one. Just kind of look at where things stand with the schedule. Let me save this first before I close it anyway. Let's look at the schedule this season. Over the weekend, that should be a good series. Dodgers and Houston. For sellers, the Baltimore Orioles and Atlanta Braves, if you have scouts at that series, should be very interesting for teams looking to add at the deadline. See which teams are in attendance for scouting that game. Texas and San Diego, as far as their ability to compete for a wild card, I think it's a very competitive series. Of course, you have the Subway Series, Mets-Yankees. Cubs-Cardinals could be defining for the Cardinals as far as how they view themselves in the division. Cincinnati, are they for real against a good team in the Philadelphia Phillies? And Boston, can they straighten themselves out against one of the worst teams in the league in the Nationals? Battle for the worst team in the league there. White Sox versus the Rockies. Couple of good, interesting teams. Bay Area series there. Giants versus Athletics. Should be interesting. All right. Appreciate you guys joining us. We'll be back live again tomorrow night. We'll probably be live a little bit earlier tomorrow, so be sure to hit that like and subscribe. Follow us on X so you guys are notified when we do go live, or turn on that little bell at the bottom of the video. That thumbs up, if you wouldn't mind hitting that, goes a long way to helping us out as well. But I really do appreciate you guys joining us this evening anyway, and we shall see you guys again tomorrow. Brandon, if the Diamondbacks are sellers, I could definitely see them selling Suarez, Kelly to the Jays. They love trading with them. They do make natural trade partners. They've done several trades in the past. Suarez, I think, could help them out at third base. Absolutely. Or at least giving them some power no matter where they deploy him, really. As far as the Kelly portion of it, it's kind of a 2-3 type of starter again for the Jays. I think they need, if they want a difference maker in that rotation, they need a true number one. Otherwise, it's just more of the same for me. I don't think Kelly moves the needle for me either way. I think it just gives them depth in case Scherzer goes down due to injury once again. But, alrighty. Appreciate you guys joining us. Stay safe out there, everybody, and we'll see you guys again tomorrow night.